Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to our daily Hindu analysis. Yesterday, the Union Finance Minister presented the annual budget, and hence today's newspaper is dominated by budget related news. So let's carry out an analysis of the Union budget by looking at the editorial on page number 10. See, the editorial is of the opinion that the budget is big on hopes but short on ideas. It points out that the budget aims to focus on infrastructure and connectivity but lacks growth invigorating proposals. See, yesterday, while talking about the economic survey, we understood that the Indian economy is gradually recovering from the impact of the pandemic. To aid this recovery and to further promote growth, what was needed was a boost to consumption and to demand. The demand for more consumption largely comes from the middle class and the poor, but these are the two segments which have been the hardest hit by the pandemic. Because the economic turmoil caused by the pandemic has directly hit the incomes and savings of the middle class and as well as the poorer sections. So, what was needed from the budget was a possible restructuring of the income tax slabs to offer some relief to the middle class and increase cash handouts to the poor through social sector schemes, which would have increased the purchasing power of the poor and the middle class, thereby boosting demand and consumption in the economy. But on this front, the union budget disappoints us as it retains the existing tax slabs and doesn't offer any tax relief, and also doesn't provide for enhanced social spending, which could have put more cash in the hands of the poor. Talking about taxes, it is important to note that there has been a significant jump in tax revenue collection for the government. By November 2021, nearly 73.5% of the estimated tax revenue had been collected by the government, which happens to be the highest tax revenue collection in the last 10 years. As per government estimates, tax collections have increased by 65% year on year, which is also the highest in the last 10 years. This graph over here clearly depicts the significant increase in tax revenue collection that has been noted over the last year. You can see the year on year percentage change until November and the tax collected, and you will notice a significant jump in the tax collection of the last financial year. However, the income tax slabs remain unchanged, thereby retaining the tax burden on the salaried class. It is important to note that while corporate taxes have gone down, income tax and indirect taxes have registered an overall increase which depicts the disparity in taxes. Then tax revenue as a percentage of GDP has registered an average of 10.4% over the last one decade, which has been depicted over here. But the biggest highlight of the budget is the massive push it is giving for increased public infrastructure spending. The budget clearly recognizes the importance of public capital expenditure, which is crucial for driving infrastructure creation, which in turn can help stimulate growth in the economy. The budget also acknowledges the role played by public capital expenditure in driving more private investments, as it induces more confidence amongst the private investors if the government is increasing its capital expenditure on infrastructure. So, to fulfill this objective, the budget gives utmost priority to PM Gati Shakti plan, under which the 7 engines of growth have been identified. These largely refer to enablers of transportation and logistics, such as roads, railways, airports, seaports, mass transportation, waterways, and logistics infrastructure. The budget is truly providing for a transformative approach for driving more public investments into these 7 engines of growth so that transportation and connectivity can receive a major boost, which in turn can help in triggering a host of other economic activities to help India become a $5 trillion economy. The budget provides increased allocation for roads and railways and has even come out with a master plan for expressways. Under this master plan, the government is looking to add around 25,000 kilometers of roads to the national highway network. The budget also provides for a record allocation of 1.37 lakh crore rupees for railways, with special focus on capacity expansion and safety. The budget hopes to promote the manufacturing of 400 new generation Vande Bharat trains in order to boost railway connectivity and proposes to adopt a indigenous technology for railway safety known as Kavach. In the initial plan, around 2,000 kilometers of railway network will be brought under Kavach to enhance safety for railway passengers. Then by introducing hundreds of new generation Vande Bharat trains, the government is hoping to promote energy efficiency amongst the railways and as well as to improve the ride experience and customer experience by providing better services to the passengers. The finance minister has also announced the one station, one product concept to help local businesses thrive at railway stations and has also proposed to set up 100 PM Gati Shakti cargo terminals for promoting the handling of cargo and logistics at railway facilities. The budget also places a lot of focus on promoting mass transportation in urban areas and talks about promoting multimodal connectivity in the country. So this additional focus being given to public infrastructure spending happens to be one of the biggest highlights of the union budget. But however, there is big disappointment with regard to spending on the social sector. It has been noted that budgetary allocation has been reduced across various sectors, including healthcare, rural development, job creation, and even for critical schemes like Manrega. This is primarily because the government is focusing on fiscal consolidation in order to bring down its fiscal deficit, which has increased significantly over the last 2 years to 6.9%. So the budget lays down a new fiscal deficit target of 6.4%, and hence to bring down government spending, the government is cutting back on its expenditure on the social sector. But one positive outcome is the launch of the National Tele-Mental Health Program, which is seeking to address mental health problems which have been aggravated over the last 2 years, especially because of the pandemic and the lockdowns. It is important to note that the budget is prioritizing mental health, and the launch of this program is a key step in this regard. Just to get a better insight into this, let's take a look at this infographic. This chart depicts the allocation for various social sectors and schemes. And as you can see, the allocation for Manrega scheme has gone down, which is crucial for job creation in the rural markets, as it not only helps in sustaining rural livelihoods, as pointed out in the economic survey, which we discussed yesterday, but it is also equally important to sustaining and promoting rural demand. Then the overall allocation for rural development has gone down slightly, whereas there has been only a marginal increase in the allocation for higher education, school education, and social welfare. Then if you look at healthcare, there appears to be a 16% increase in budgetary allocation, but this is only when you compare the proposed estimates. But if you compare this with the revised estimates and the actual spending on healthcare last year, you will notice that there is no increase in the budgetary allocation for the healthcare sector despite the pandemic, and there is zero allocation for emergency response fund. But however, the ambitious Pradhan Mantri Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission has seen a substantial increase in its budgetary allocation, and this represents a positive step for the healthcare sector. On the other hand, healthcare experts have welcomed the priority being given for mental health, and the National Tele-Mental Health Program, which has been proposed, would be launched by NIMANS, which is based out of Bengaluru, in association with IIIT Bangalore for the required technological support in order to remotely deliver mental health services. But however, the budget is also disappointing for the healthcare sector as it ignores several essential medical services and does not provide for any significant increase in overall allocation for the sector. Then a few positives in the social sector includes an allocation of 48,000 crore rupees for PM Awas Yojana which will be used to construct around 80 lakh houses for both the rural and urban poor. Then, to address the 2-year learning gap which has been created by the pandemic and the closure of schools, the budget proposes the establishment of a digital university along with a rapid expansion in the development of e-content for schools and colleges, followed by the expansion of educational TV channels from the existing 12 channels to 200 channels. But experts point out that this won't be sufficient to address the 2-year learning gap, as the budget does not address the digital divide, which is aggravating inequities in the education sector. Then the budget proposes the establishment of new generation Anganwadi centers with better infrastructure to provide better nutrition, healthcare and education for young children, and has also proposed a 12% increase in budgetary allocation to the Social Justice Ministry, which implements key welfare programs for scheduled castes, for senior citizens, and as well as for people with disabilities. Next, to boost the Atmanirbhar Bharat vision of the Prime Minister and to promote the principle of self-reliance, the budget offers a lot of incentives to the domestic manufacturing sector through various tariff and policy measures. Especially in the defense sector, the budget is focused on reducing import dependency of the Indian Armed Forces and tries to promote indigenization with regard to defense procurement. The budget has earmarked 68% of the capital procurement budget of the armed forces to the domestic defense industry, which is quite a significant hike compared to the 58% target of last year. It essentially means that out of the capital procurement budget that has been allocated to the armed forces, they have to ensure that 68% of it is used for indigenous procurement of defense platforms. Now, if you look at this infographic, it breaks down the budgetary allocation for various sectors and ministries. And if you look at the defense sector, you will notice that there is no change. But however, the budget does give a major boost to promote domestic manufacturing, especially in the defense sector. This will promote defense research and development in the country and help create a better ecosystem for promoting indigenous defense technologies. Next, the budget also addresses the confusion surrounding cryptocurrencies and virtual digital assets. The budget has proposed the introduction of a central bank digital currency, which would be introduced by the RBI, and it proposes to bring out a digital rupee that would be based on blockchain technology and other related technologies. The government is hoping that the introduction of such a digital rupee based on blockchain will help in bringing more efficiency into the digital economy, and this could lead to a cheaper currency management system for India. Then coming to private cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum and the others, the budget has proposed a flat taxation of 30% on all the income generated through the transfer or sale of cryptocurrencies. While this tax bracket might seem to be higher, it does help in regulating the crypto industry and will help in streamlining the investments in the sector. More importantly, better regulation will help in protecting the investors and their interests, and will also help in keeping away small investors who might be misled by unrealistic profits in crypto assets. Then coming to disinvestments, the budget entirely skips mentioning the asset monetization plan, which was launched as an ambitious program by the government in last year's budget. Through this plan, the government had proposed to raise more capital by monetizing public assets such as airports, stadiums, and other key public infrastructure. But the failure to realize these objectives has led the government to skip mentioning asset monetization plan in the budget, and it coincides with the decline in disinvestment proceeds, and hence the government has budgeted only around 65,000 crore rupees from asset sale for this financial year, as compared to the 78,000 crore that was budgeted for the last financial year. So this decline in government revenue through disinvestments and asset monetization will have to be met by the government by increasing its borrowing. The budget clearly indicates that the government's gross borrowing is going to increase to 14.95 lakh crore rupees, which represents a 24% increase from the current fiscal's budget estimate and a much higher 43% increase as compared to the revised estimate of last year. So this significant jump in government borrowing highlights the need to promote more growth-inducing measures, such as boosting demand and consumption in the market. Then coming back to taxes, the budget has extended the tax incentives and tax holiday that is offered to startups as they have emerged as the drivers of growth in the economy. Then cooperative societies have also been given a relief by slashing alternate minimum tax to 15% and by reducing the surcharge that is levied on them. This gives them a fair field to compete with their rivals in the private sector. Such incentives being offered to cooperative societies is expected to boost rural business and income and is expected to help the rural and farming communities. Then finally, the budget also proposes a duty reduction and duty rationalization for promoting the domestic manufacturing of key electronic items, including high growth electronic goods such as gadgets, devices, wearables, electronic smart meters, etc. This will help reduce India's import dependency and will also help in boosting domestic manufacturing of key electronic goods. Now coming to the agriculture sector, there is a slight decline in budgetary allocation despite the need for higher procurement from the government at MSP prices. Due to favorable climatic conditions, a bumper Rabi crop is expected across different varieties of crops, and this would require the government to step up its procurement at MSP prices. But despite this, the government's budgetary allocation for agriculture has gone down slightly and stands at 3.84% of the total budget. Last year, the share of agriculture in the budget was at 3.92%. But however, the budget does focus more on promoting agri-technology and research and development in agricultural science, which could directly aid in increasing yield and productivity for increasing farmers' income in the long term. It also proposes the usage of Kisan drones, that is the development of customized drones for agriculture, which can be used for crop assessment, digitization of land records, spraying of insecticides and nutrients. For this purpose, a public-private partnership scheme is being launched, through which promotion of agri-tech will be facilitated by NABARD so that the benefits of these developments could be passed down to the farmers. Then talking about the domestic production of drones, the budget also pays special attention for promoting startups in this sector as the government has recently come out with a drone policy. As drones or unmanned aerial vehicles serve multiple purposes, the government wants to establish India as a major production hub for drones, and accordingly, the Drone Shakti program is being launched with the aim of promoting and facilitating drones as a service by facilitating the drone-based startups of India. This program is looking to fully capture the military and civilian applications of drones, and accordingly, a policy is being put in place to nurture the drone-based startups and the technological ecosystem that is needed for this purpose. Then coming to foreign policy, the budget has allocated higher funds for high priority countries and regions as far as Indian foreign policy is concerned. The budget has granted 200 crores for the Ministry of External Affairs to be spent in Afghanistan on reconstruction projects and humanitarian assistance, as the country is facing a grave crisis after being taken over by the Taliban. But as always, Bhutan has received the highest allocation to the tune of 2,266 crore rupees, followed by Mauritius receiving the second highest allocation at 900 crore rupees. This is followed by Nepal and Bangladesh, which have received 750 crores and 300 crores respectively, thus highlighting the priority given in Indian foreign policy to its immediate neighborhood. Then as India is looking to step up its African diplomacy, it is trying to open more embassies on the African continent, and hence the Africa region has received a higher budgetary allocation of 250 crores. And interestingly, Mongolia, the northern neighbor of China, which until now was allotted just around 2 crore rupees, has seen a significant increase to 12 crore rupees. So this country-wise and region-wise allocation shows India's foreign policy priorities, even though the overall budget of the MEA has not increased by much. Then finally, to give you a picture about how corporate taxation is skewed in their favor, you need to look at this infographic that is carried by the Hindu. It shows that companies which report higher share in profits, especially for those companies posting a profit of more than 500 crores, the effective tax rate happens to be the lowest. Over the last few years, India's effective corporate tax rate has dropped to 25.2% as compared to higher corporate taxes levied by countries such as Brazil, Japan, Germany, and even South Africa. But on the other end of the spectrum, there are countries such as UK, Russia, US, Israel, and China, which levy much lower corporate taxes. But the lower effective tax rate paid by corporates in India, especially those making higher profits, depicts a big disparity in the taxation structure. Now see, whatever analysis we discussed regarding the budget is based on expert comments that has been provided in articles on page number 10 and 11. So I want you to take a more detailed look at these columns because according to this article written by Dr. C. Rangarajan, the biggest takeaway from the budget is the push being given for infrastructure creation. But however, the government needs to be mindful of fiscal consolidation and achieving the fiscal targets. Then R. Nagaraj points out that the government is making a bold effort at driving public investment in order to boost growth. But however, it fails to pay adequate attention to the falling share of private consumption and rising economic inequality in the Indian market. Then on page number 11, we have a series of articles. And according to Mr. Govind Rao, the budget is rightly focused on accelerating growth and stability. And in this regard, the provisions of the budget are in the right direction, but its overall impact will depend on how the provisions and the schemes will be implemented and with what efficiency will the government strive to achieve these objectives. But Deepa Sinha feels that the social sector has been betrayed as a result of reduced allocation for key sectors, and this could affect healthcare, nutrition, education, employment, thereby compromising on the goal of inclusive growth. She argues that the government seems to be focusing on meeting its fiscal deficit targets, even at the cost of compromising on inclusive growth. Then, as discussed, leading healthcare experts argue that the budget is sending a mixed signal to the healthcare industry and the healthcare sector, because while it has a few good provisions with regard to mental health and with regard to flagship schemes like Ayushman Bharat, it fails to provide adequate allocation for other key healthcare programs. Now let's look at an article from page 21 of the online edition of the Hindu. This explainer article examines the ongoing negotiations for a free trade agreement between India and the United Kingdom. It evaluates as to how this proposed FTA will help both the countries and in which specific sectors. See, as we discussed the other day in our daily quiz, a FTA is meant to promote the free flow or the free movement of goods, services, and investments between two countries. The main purpose of an FTA is to reduce or eliminate the barriers to trade, which includes both tariff-based barriers and non-tariff barriers. Tariff-based barriers are nothing but high taxes and duties, whereas non-tariff barriers will include any type of barrier to trade which is not related to taxes or duties. This could be related to visa and immigration policy, connectivity, the laws and policies of the two countries, etc. So a free trade agreement essentially tries to reduce or eliminate these barriers to trade, and it tries to rationalize the taxes and duties and tries to harmonize the laws and policies of the two nations. So this will facilitate the free movement of goods, services, and investments, thereby significantly increasing the bilateral trading volume. Now, Britain, or UK in particular, is proactively seeking out such FTAs with several countries, especially in the Indo Pacific region, after Britain exited the European Union. Because when Britain was part of the EU, its trade policies was determined by the trade policies of the EU, and Britain felt that this alignment with the EU was restricting and constraining its growth opportunities. But after Britain exited the EU through Brexit, Britain has acquired a newfound freedom to negotiate its own trade deals with key trading partners. And in this regard, Britain has been clearly displaying a Indo-Pacific tilt, which happens to be the focal point of today's global economy. In line with this, Britain recently signed a free trade agreement with key trading partner Australia, and this FTA is expected to bring enormous benefits to both the countries. Following this, Britain has stepped up its engagement with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is a comprehensive free trade area being created by around 11 Pacific Rim nations, including Australia. So, on similar lines, Britain is also pursuing a FTA with India, as India happens to be a key trading partner for the UK. And this is true vice versa as well, because even for India, the UK is a key trading partner. So both the countries have begun negotiations for an FTA, and recently the first round of talks have been concluded, and they want to finalize this FTA as soon as possible. Through this FTA, both the countries are hoping to double their bilateral trading volume by the end of this decade. The foundation for these FTA negotiations was laid last year when both the countries signed the Enhanced Trade Deal. Through this deal, the trading volume has already started increasing between India and UK, and a total of £1 billion in investment has flown across, and Indian investments alone has created 6,500 jobs in the UK over the last 1 year. Now, this is quite significant considering the economic downturn caused by the pandemic. So this shows the robustness of India-Britain trading relationship, and hence by working out an FTA, the two countries are trying to double the trading volume, which last year stood at around £23.3 billion, and they want to scale this up to £50 billion by 2030. Once the proposed FTA is finalized, it will facilitate the free movement of goods between India and UK and will help India to drive up its exports to the British market. It will also facilitate the flow of investments both from India to UK and from UK to India. Indian companies are already major investors in Britain, and they have already contributed to thousands of jobs in the country. On the other hand, Britain is also a key investor in India and has brought in nearly £21 billion just in the last 2 decades, which makes Britain the largest Western investor in India. As the Indian economy is all set to become the third largest economy in the world by 2050, Britain wants to capitalize on this market, and an FTA will help both the countries achieve these objectives. It will definitely facilitate the smoother flow of goods and investments, and will also help in further expanding cooperation to various other services, including education, legal, financial, and as well as in research and development. Such an agreement will help thousands of Indian students who go to the United Kingdom to study in elite universities, and it will also allow UK-based universities to set up their campuses in India. This agreement will also help India and UK to focus on energy cooperation, especially green energy cooperation, and work together in the field of renewables in order to bring down their carbon footprint. Then in the field of agriculture and healthcare, the two countries can collaborate in research and development, and we already have such initiatives which have begun, and these will only receive a further boost once the FTA is signed. In fact, research institutions of India and UK have already started an initiative known as Transforming India's Green Revolution by Research and Empowerment for Sustainable Food Supplies, through which agricultural research cooperation is being promoted in order to drive the second green revolution in India, with the aim of increasing India's food production to 400 million tons in the next 15 years. So such ambitious research projects will receive a further boost and will bring greater benefits to both the countries in the agriculture and healthcare sector. Then finally, the signing of this FTA will enormously benefit the Indian diaspora, which has a very strong presence and influence in the United Kingdom. The Indian diaspora population in the UK is estimated to be at around 1.5 million strong, and the signing of this agreement will bring them enormous economic and social benefits. So, with these objectives in mind, the two countries have begun FTA negotiations and they expect to finalize the agreement very soon. Now, let's take a look at the mains practice questions. The first question: Union Budget 2022 gives a solid push for infrastructure and growth while falling short in the social sector. Analyze. The second question: How will the India-UK Free Trade Agreement help both the countries and in which sectors? Kindly write an answer to these questions and post your answers in the answer writing portal, for which the link shall be given in the description box below. So with this, I would like to conclude the discussion for today. Thanks for watching.